I nominated Kristen Frank for the Inclusion Award for her work last year in her geography, her grade 9 geography class. She had 5 students who were identified to be included in her classroom. These are students who normally would not be in a traditional classroom, and she had 5 in one class, and I was quite intrigued. I knew this was a challenge for her, and on a number of occasions I had the opportunity to have an on-call in her class, and I went in really not knowing what to expect, and I was really impressed.
Inclusive teaching practice often presents a challenge, and there's no doubt that it did for me as well. But I think that teachers often go with the tried, tested, and true in terms of what's best for their students. The inclusive teaching journey for me included dropping what was tried and going with the tested and true and trying some new things, including a lot of community building and team building and making sure that student engagement was there. The use of technology was key so that students could access content and demonstrate and share their learning. And also the inquiry process was a big part of my inclusive teaching practice. Questions are an accessible format for learning. Everyone has questions, and there was lots of learning on both student and teacher's part, but I am thankful for the recognition for my efforts in that journey.
So I chose Kim Lane and Chris Cavill to be candidates for the Coaching to Inclusion Award, and the reason I chose them is as follows. Kim, for one, she's a kindergarten teacher. She made sure that her student was always involved in classroom activities, and she demanded that her students were always going to be at the same level in the classroom, and one of her students is in a wheelchair. So she made sure that he was out of his wheelchair and down right where the kids were. And she always talked to him exactly the same way that she would talk to any of the students in her class. So even though he can't communicate. So she would say to him things like, what would you like, or what do you think of that? And she'd always give him an opportunity, and then she would use ways to try to get him to be able to communicate with the rest of the students. And it got to the point where the kids treated him exactly the same way that they did anybody else in the classroom.
Thank you very much for nominating me for the Inclusion Award. It's a real honor. I do feel that this is a group effort. I was so fortunate to work with an incredible EA and fantastic students last year who made sure that the student in our class with special needs was always included. One example of how the students included this child was by building a bus that had a ramp so that he would be able to access the bus with them and play. Thanks very much for the nomination.
I chose Chris Cavill because Chris is a remarkable teacher. He knows exactly how to differentiate instruction. He would give a task to his class, but he would modify the task so that it could be done by others in the class who may not be at exactly the same level, but the kids would have choice involved. And he would also do a lot of inquiry teaching. So he would ask a question about a particular student who might be struggling, and then he would reflect on what it is he was doing with that student, come back and make changes to how he was teaching so that his teaching style matched what the students needed.
I'd like to, first of all, say thank you very much for the nomination. I feel very honored to be considered for something like this. In order to be considered truly worthy of this award, I feel that I need to make sure that I am using everything I've learned in the past year going forward with all of my future students over the rest of my career.
I have nominated Julie Walsh for the Coaching to Inclusion Award for our school. I nominated Julie because she's the kind of teacher who at the core of her believes that all students can learn and be successful in the regular classroom setting. Julie strives each and every day to create the conditions for success in her classroom. On top of that, she willingly connected with our Learning for All coach so she can develop better strategies and pedagogy to help these students move forward in her classroom.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be nominated for the Champion of Inclusion Award. Thank you very much for this nomination. Last year I had a real year of learning and growth, and I think that everything that I learned not only helps me to help exceptional students, but to help all of the students in my class. It helps me to challenge them and myself, helps me to engage all of my students, and it helps me to ensure that every student reaches the best of their ability.
My name is Robert Parkinson, and I'm principal at Mornington Central School, and I nominated Laura Visser, one of our educational assistants for the past couple of years, for the Coaching to Inclusion Award. She was just always on the go, right from the beginning, looking at various ways to include the to students in meaningful ways in what they were doing in the classroom.
I would like to thank Robert Parkinson and Jennifer Graham for nominating me for the Inclusion Award. Everything we did, all the kids in the class were included as well, so they learned from that as well for having full inclusion. We'd have team meetings to come up with ideas to have every single activity involved so they can be involved as well.
I would like to thank Emma Bannerman for my nomination for the Champion of Inclusion Award. This is a journey that I did not take on my own. I could never have gotten this far without the help of my Learning for All coach, Judy Campbell, who was absolutely phenomenal. Also, our CERT here, Joy Cheskis, was also wonderful. Another reason why I think it was so successful is the one-to-one iPad project. Once those devices were put into the hands of all of the students in my class, I could see people brighten up right away. The playing field was leveled, and no longer did anybody stick out, but they blended in perfectly, which made for incredible experiences. So thank you for the opportunity.
I guess what I've been doing, maybe why I was nominated for this, is just to make learning meaningful for all kids. But a lot of the credit goes to the kids. I mean, what I like to do is just model inclusive behavior for my students and kind of let them take it from there. So a lot of the credit goes to my kids for really taking charge with promoting inclusivity in NBHS, and also to the Learning for All coach that I work with, Kim Hayter. She helped a ton along the way. So thank you to Emma and thank you to Kim.